Hey Robo Buddies! Welcome to my final Christmas gift guide video for the year 2011. Now in last week's video I talked about some of my favorite Melody Carlson books, and in this week's video I'm going to talk about some books by my other favorite author, Ted Dekker. So, let's get started. So I was introduced to Ted Dekker back in high school by my favorite English teacher. Back then he gave us a list of books that we needed to read for our book reports, and I couldn't find any of the books that sounded interesting on that list. And I noticed he had a lot of Ted Dekker books on the list. So I was like, hey, if there's a lot of Ted Dekker books, maybe the library will have just one of these books for me to read. And sure enough, they had tons of Ted Dekker books, so I picked up the book 3, which is spelled T-H-R and the number 3 and then the letter E. And I was hooked. Like, within the first couple pages, I could not put this book down. I was reading it at school, I was reading it at home. I mean, I had such a difficult time focusing on anything else. And Ted Dekker, he writes psychological thrillers, but he's a Christian author. So what's really cool about him is that he appeals to people who aren't Christians and to people who are Christians. He writes a lot about good and evil, light versus dark, but his writing style is unlike anything that you'll ever read. And he has a lot of symbolism in his books, but what I like about it is that it's not heavy symbolism, you know, because I can be kind of thick-headed when it comes to trying to discern what symbols mean. I think it made more sense to me because I have a lot of Bible knowledge, and what Ted Dekker likes to do is he likes to slip these Christian symbols into his books. So if you're a Christian and you're reading his books, you can make the connections to the Bible, but if you're not a Christian, you can read these books and you still get a phenomenal read out of it. So I definitely recommend starting with the book 3. That's what I started with, and anytime I introduce somebody to Ted Dekker, I give them the book 3 because it changed my view of writing completely, and it always ends up changing theirs. It's just a phenomenal book. Then, after you finish reading 3, if you enjoy Ted Dekker's writing style, I definitely recommend moving on to the book Obsessed. What Ted Dekker likes to do, he likes to mix these two different stories together that seemingly, don't seem to make sense. For example, in Obsessed, there's a character who is living in just the modern day world, and then there are these two women who are living in a concentration camp. And so, it's two different decades and two different places in the world, and yet you're wondering, how are these stories going to end up lining up? And yet they do. And if you decide that you like Ted Dekker after that, then I recommend moving on to the Circle series. Now, the Circle series is what really takes Ted Dekker's writing to a more biblical perspective. Now, the Circle series was originally a trilogy. The first book is called Black. The second book is called Red. And the third book was called White. But then a couple years ago, Ted Dekker came out with a fourth book called Green. And what's really cool about these books is that you can either start with green or end with green, and the entire thing makes a circle. But with the Circle series, what it's about is, again, there's two different realities, and in one reality, there's a guy named Thomas Hunter, and, it's just modern day reality. There's this, virus thing that's going to be unleashed in the world, and it's going to kill the world's populations, and so this guy, Thomas, has to go figure out how to save the world. But he ends up getting shot or pushed off this building, and whenever he wakes up, he's in this completely different world. He's in this dark, foresty area, and it's just a really bizarre place. He discovers he's in this completely different reality, and this reality is actually Earth, just years and years and years in the future. And so what's happening is anytime he goes to sleep, he wakes up in this other reality. And so it's like he's living two different lives. I can't even begin to do it justice, but definitely check out the Circle series. Now, what Ted Dekker likes to do is he likes to take some of the books that he's written and connect them to other books that he's written. So you can read about one character in one book, and then you can read about another character in another book, and these two books that seemingly don't seem to make any sort of, connections to each other suddenly do, and it's just like it takes on a whole new deeper meaning to these books. But if you read the Circle series, then I recommend getting the Lost books. Now, this is actually intended for young adults, but I read them and I seriously could not put them down. I read the first 4 in 5 days, and then I had to give the last 2 to my boyfriend because I was like, take these, I am running behind on all my work, I can't get anything done, take them. And it was terrible those next couple days because I had to finish this series. There are 6 books, and each one has C-I-R-C-L-E, which is really cool. And what happens is in the Circle trilogy, there are these things called, I think they're the Lost books or the Books of History. They're like these blank books, and if you get a hold of all of these books, then what happens is you can write in them and change reality. which, I mean, if you can imagine, that can turn out super, super bad if they get into the wrong hands. And so what's happening is there are these 4 characters who are young adults, and they go on this quest to try to find these lost books. And these are characters who are from the future reality that the main character in the Circles trilogy is in. So, I mean, that's like another subplot to the Circle trilogy. And again, what's even cooler is that how Ted Dekker likes to combine his stories that you think wouldn't even relate to the Circle trilogy, he ties in. For example, the books Showdown, Saint, and Sinner. These books, you can read them separately, you can read them together, and they still make sense. But what I've noticed is that he has characters in those 3 books that are in the Lost books and that are in the Circle trilogy. There's a character in the Circle young adult series, she's called, I think, Darcel, but then there's a character in the Showdown book called Darcy, which makes you wonder, is this the character's identity in this other reality? It's, again, totally and completely phenomenal just how he ties his books together and how you can read, you know, the books individually or you can read the books collectively and continue to get just some amazing stuff out of them. And so Ted Dekker, he's great because not only is his writing style, you know, fast-paced and exciting and just gets you, you know, so ingrained into the story, but his symbolism is easy to understand and he doesn't, you know, smash you over the head with this Christianity thing. It's subtle, and if you understand a lot of biblical symbolism, then you're just like, that is so cool how he did that. But again, if you don't understand a lot of biblical symbolism, it gets you thinking like, that's an interesting concept. I wonder what he means by that. I've heard Ted Dekker actually compared to Stephen King, so he's like a Christian version of Stephen King. And if you're like me, then you probably are like, ugh, Stephen King, really? I don't know if I want to read Ted Dekker. But trust me, I mean, I have the most overactive imagination in the world. I get scared so easily. And Ted Dekker, even though his books are kind of like psychological thrillers and can have some eerie elements to them, if I can handle them, trust me, you can handle them too. Ted Dekker is just an incredible author, and I highly encourage you read them. I mean, if you personally are looking for something good to read, then Ted Dekker is a great place to start. Whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, it doesn't matter. He appeals to all kinds of people. And let's say that you have a friend who maybe you'd like to talk to about Christianity, but you don't know how. Ted Dekker books are a great place to start because it's not, you know, again, unfortunately a lot of people have a tendency for shoving their religion down other people's throats, you know, instead of just having a natural conversation with people. And so Ted Dekker books are a great conversation starter. It's a great way to get, you know, your friends and yourself thinking about these biblical concepts. Definitely, he's worth checking out. So, I want to have a giveaway of a Ted Dekker book, but before I get to that, I want to announce the winners of last week's giveaway of the 4 Melody Carlson books. The winner of the first Caitlin book is... The winner of the first Chloe book is... The winner of the first Kim book is... And the winner of the first Maya book is... So, if you want, send me a message with your address and I will do my best to get those books out to you by Christmas. If you don't get them by Christmas, then... yay! Happy New Year's! So in this video, I'm giving away Ted Dekker's book 3. Now again, that is the first Ted Dekker book I read and I absolutely could not put it down. So if you would like to win this book, leave a comment below and tell me what your all-time favorite book is and what you like about it. Because I'm in the need of some new reads. So, yay! Hope you guys have a spiffy Christmas. Ciao!